All right, so morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you happen to be. It's Brendan Vanis, the tech rep for PlayFab, and I'm here today with Zach Bragg. He's our tools team demo engineer, and he's going to be presenting today on TitleData and its uses in PlayFab in Unity. So take it away, Zach.
Thanks, Brendan. Glad to be here. Today I'll be talking about TitleData basics, and while this is a simplistic system, it's very powerful in what it can do and how it can impact your game. So we're going to iterate over the scenarios of how to use TitleData as well as the limitations and structure that we have built around TitleData and general good to know tips for working with TitleData for your PlayFab title. First, we'll talk a little bit about who we are. So we build a games operation platform. We have about 230 RESTful APIs, and this ranges across many back-end game services, including authentication, virtual currency management, game data storage, which we're going to focus on today, analytics, and more. And then you can find out more information on who we are, what we do on the posted sites here. And then those are some of our customers down at the bottom that are some of the more recent and notable customers out in the games industry. So before we continue, I'm gonna say definitely check out PlayFab, sign up for an account. It's free to sign up, and if you already have done so, you're in position to follow along with us today and get a thorough overview of the TitleData. So it should go without saying that you should already have a title set up in Game Manager. If not, it's pretty simple to do so, and you'll see us walk through that process very briefly. And then it's also a good idea to be comfortable using Postman or a HTTP request sending and building tool. I will be showing a lot of screens from Postman and be interacting with the Postman client heavily in this example. So just know that Postman allows you to simulate what your game would be calling and see the results going in and out as far as the JSON data, the HTTP headers go. So with those prerequisites, we'll move into what is TitleData. So TitleData is plain text key value storage, and we offer three varieties of key value storage. We have title-wide storage, which allows you to store key value pairs at the title level, and any user that is connected to that title can access those variables. And the ideal scenario here is using these variables to contain your level settings, enemy NPC attributes, sales and event details that control when sales start, when events end, what contents they are, reward systems. All of these things can be built into TitleData, which drives the game and experience for all of your customers. We also offer a publisher-wide data, and this one is a little bit different than TitleData in that publisher data is not only just accessible from the client title, the title that the client is connected to, but also from any title under your publishing umbrella. So if you have multiple titles in the PlayFab system and you are setting up TitleData, just know that you can access that TitleData from any of these clients, regardless of which one they've actually logged in and authenticated with. This has the unique benefit of being able to do cross-promotional sales from one game to another. You can store news, updates, and announcements in your TitleData, and then that news, updates, and announcements are the same across all of your games, as well as community links and support sites. If you have any common data among your games, publisher-wide TitleData is a great location to store that. And lastly, internal storage, and this is restricted access key value storage that's only available through and to the server and admin API sets. And this is useful when you've got data that needs to be accessible to all instances of your game that can be queried at any particular time, but you don't want the data is sensitive and you don't want the client to get access to this data or even see what it is. So in all scenarios of TitleData, the client API cannot write to TitleData, but it can always read in the cases of title-wide and publisher-wide, and then it can't even see or know anything about the internal storage title data distinction. So those are the three areas of title data, and I kind of got a fading graphic here for, Unicorn Battle is one of our sample games. That is representing the title-wide data. Anyone playing Unicorn Battle can access that title data. We later come out with Unicorn Battle 2, and we store some publisher data.
Okay, for those of you on the call, I do apologize. Don't know quite what went wrong with this, but we're going to be starting to, hang on just one second. So go back to the start of the talk. We're just going to take it from the top.
Okay.
So, sorry folks, technical snafu. We will be correcting this. This is Brendan Vanis, tech rep for PlayFab. With me today I've got Zach Bragg, our demo engineer from the PlayFab tools team. And today we're going to talk through title data and its use in PlayFab in Unity. Okay.
All right.
Take it away, Zach.
Thanks, Brendan. It's great to be here. Today I'm here to talk about title data basics and the range and limitations of what can be done with title data. It's a very simplistic system, but its impact and effectiveness that it can have on a title is really very impressive and far-reaching. And we're going to go through a lot of those examples and show how these simple constructs can really drive unique and personalized gameplay experiences for your players. So a bit about who we are. We are PlayFab. Let's get the slides up. All right. We're looking good now. We are PlayFab. We build a games operation platform with 230 RESTful API calls that access our scalable backend services for player authentication, virtual currency management, game data storage, which we're going to focus primarily on that aspect today, as well as analytics and more. And we're available on all major gaming platforms and runtimes, and you can find additional information about us by following the sites posted here. And then down at the bottom, those are some of our more prominent customers that have recently moved onto the platform or recently released and have games out in the wild. All right, and before we continue, I just wanted to run through, if you haven't got a PlayFab account already, go to that website I just posted, playfab.com, developer.playfab.com. Either one will take you to the right place. Sign up for an account. It's free, and you can follow along with the screens and demonstration that we'll be walking through today. Obviously, you'll need to set up a title in the game manager, and then for that title, we're going to be inputting or accessing and posting data to that title, so hence the name title data. All of our data will be accessible in that way, and we will pull that down through Postman. So if you are familiar with Postman, it's going to be easy for you to see what's going on. If you're not, Postman is a HTTP request building tool, so you can build HTTP requests, send those to endpoints, and then see the response of that request and all of the data that is sent and received. So it's very useful for emulating what your game is going to do when making these API calls. All right. So that brings us to the question, what is title data? And title data is a plain text key value storage. And we offer three flavors of this title data storage. One at the title-wide level. This would be an example here called Unicorn Battle. That's our sample demo title that we use for trying things out and mocking up a real game scenario. So within Unicorn Battle, we have title data running the level settings, enemy and NPC attributes, sales and event details, when things come on sale, what is on sale, and how long that sale runs for. Similarly, there are details for events and encounters. All of this data is loaded at the title level, accessible to all clients that are currently playing Unicorn Battle. We also offer publisher-wide title data, and this would be in the scenario where you have a Unicorn Battle 2 or additional titles out that you're working on developing, but you need a common set of data that's accessible to both or all of your titles, regardless of what data is there in the regular title data or which user is currently logged in. And this is ideal for storing information used for cross-promotional sales, having users of Unicorn Battle play Unicorn Battle 2 or other titles that you develop on, having news, updates, and announcements, and making sure that your news, updates, and announcements are common, set in one place and commonly read and pulled down at all endpoints, regardless of what title it's on, and then also community links and support sites. That way you can keep everything in one place and access it from a simple API call for all of your titles. Additionally, we offer internal storage, which provides restricted access to a set of key value pairs, and this access is restricted to calls coming through the API, the server or admin API. And the scenario for using your internal storage would be you have some sensitive data that you would not want to share or have your customers view. In all scenarios, title, publisher, and internal, the customer, client, end user will never be able to write to these values. They can only read. But in the case of internal storage, they can't read or write or even know what is stored there. So it's useful for storing sensitive information about, character-specific information for leveling, how, what the level up curve is, or some of your gameplay balancing formulas and variables can be stored there, used on all the clients, and you can rest assured that it's safely obstructed or obfuscated from your clients. Moving on to some of the details behind title data in general. So each title gets 100 title data and 100 publisher data keys. Each can store up to 10 kilobytes per key value pair. And the benefits of this basically is keeping title-wide configuration variables accessible and organized. You can retrieve one at a time, all at a time, or by an itemized subset. And you can accept simple data strings and numbers or complex objects and serialize with JSON. So that's kind of how you can eat a 10K. Really kind of sounds like a lot for one record, but in theory you can put in an entire JSON stringified object. So you can put in as much data in there up to the limit, and all of that can be pulled back out and used as a complex object in your client. And we're going to see examples of each of those use cases. All right, so the first part of this whole concept is storing the data. So we have title data. It's hosted out at the title level. You can access it from the game manager, and you can also access it programmatically from our admin and server APIs. To do so, you'll want to open your game manager, go into the settings, and then down to the title data subtab. Once you're at the subtab, you get a key value pair editing interface where you can add, delete, and edit all of the key value pairs associated with that title. For the other flavors of title data, both publisher and internal, those are programmatically used only. You will not find them displayed or editable in the game manager. And I'll show off the game manager here just after, just a moment actually. All right, so once you get your data stored in whichever method you prefer, whether you put it in manually through the web tool or you put it in programmatically through your build pipeline, and that data gets out into title data, then your client or server will need to pull down at runtime to make use of the data and generate the experience you're trying to build. So this is two code examples, C# code examples from Unity, where we're pulling our client API and server API. And these follow our very standard callback model. You've got a request, you build that request, send in your parameters, and that request goes out asynchronously, and then eventually the response comes back, and you can parse through the response and pull out your data. And both server and client work identical. Just there is the difference that we mentioned earlier with permissions. Server has the ability to write to these title data, client does not, and server gets access to the internal title data, which client also does not. So with that, I'm going to take off the slides here and start with the game manager, where we've got I'm already logged in under my developer account, and here I've got my publisher demo. I've got two different titles running, one data example 1 and data example 2. So we're going to move over to data example 1, And like we just described, under settings, title data, you will see your game manager with all of the values associated with the current title. So this is a brand new title, brand new studio, so there's not anything been entered here. First thing I'm going to want to do is add a new item. And for this, I'll call the item today. And the value is good day. And I'm going to submit that. And there we go. Our data has, first data record, first key value pair has now been entered into our title. So the next part would be how you use this in your client. So I'll move over briefly to the slide deck here where I've got the client API on the left. That's the code that would be ran in your Unity game. But for this next demo, I'm going to show what it looks like when you're using the Postman HTTP tool. So pulling that up, we've got a login feature. So first you have to log in. Title data does require an authenticated ticket. So to get that, you'll have to go through one of our mini login calls. And we've got a lot of good tutorials and other videos that go through all the various ways to log in and link into other third-party authentication networks. So after we log in, we get a session ticket. I'm going to save this session ticket to my environment. And now I'm essentially authenticated. This would be after logging in when you're playing your game. Now I'm going to move over to our get title data API call. So in this request, I'm not requesting any specific title key. You'll just see my array is blank, and this is going to tell the server, give me all the keys that are associated with this title. So when I send that out, sure enough, I get my key back, today is a good day. So now we see that the relationship of putting the data up there, pulling it down, and now I'm going to switch over to the server title, set title data. So I'm going to set a title key tomorrow and value and a value for that key. So I'm going to send this off using the server API, which has authority to write to the server. Oops, got a brief error there. Once we get the header in there properly, we get the OK success call, and then now we're going to swap back over to the game manager and see that we did write back an additional title key called tomorrow, and there's the value we put in there for that particular key. All right. And next I'm going to show publisher data. So we talked about having a data that's accessible not only from one title, but within the publisher umbrella of your title. This one is an example for something like a deal of the week. I'm going to set up a key that's called deal of the week, and then that value is, just a stand-in value now, but that could be a ID to look up for additional details to get more info on the deal of the week. And presumably all of these games would have a common lookup, and they can look up the deal of the week specific for that game. So I'm going to put that up to the server, and once that's there, we can now experiment with seeing the response from both data example 01 and data example 02. And to do this quickly and easily, I'd like to also highlight our new doc site, which has the ability to try our APIs in the browser. And I'll show you how this can be very cool and save you a lot of time. So we're going to want to go to our doc site, api.playfab.com. On the left-hand side, under API reference, you'll see drop-down menus that expand into all the various client, server, matchmaker, and admin API sets. So I'm going to expand all and search on get title data. All right, once we found the API reference, we'll pull this up, and you'll get an overview for everything about this API. Its properties, what's optional, what's required, what type of variable it is, as well as sample JSON header JSON and header examples. Also, you'll note on the right, we have a Try It Now button. So clicking the Try It Now button will expand the Try It Now for Get Title Data. And for this drop-down box, I can see all the titles that I currently have access to. And we have been looking currently at data example 01 and data example 02. So I'm going to select that and I'm going to run this with wide open. So we should be pulling down all of our keys. And sure enough, we get today is a good day and tomorrow and will be yesterday tomorrow. So that information is persisting not only from our logged in state, but also our Try It Now, where it knows that this is my developer account and these are the titles I have access to. So for comparison, I can switch over to title example 02 and see what we returned from that. That was a brand new title, doesn't have anything in it, just an empty object with empty data. And now I'm going to take a look at publisher title data. So I'm going to switch back into client, expand all, get publisher data. Just a moment here. Got a couple different get publisher data. Found it. All right. So we're going to try it now on both titles, starting first with data example 01. In this example, you do have to provide a key. There's not a way to use an empty array and get all the keys back. So we will need to type in the key of, go copy and paste the exact text, forget the name, deal of the week, of course. And we make that call. And interesting. So it looks like not getting the intended result here. So I'm going to switch over to Postman and get the get publisher data here for, this will be running under my first title, so get the key deal of the week. And that gives me the data that we put in using our set title data call. We get the exact data there, and then I'm going to change my environment to data example 02. I'm going to log in into to get an authentication ticket for my second title. E5A is the title ID for this one. Logging in, getting my session ticket, setting my session ticket, and now I know that I'll be authenticated to run this get publisher data for the second title. So we're going to send that out, and we get the exact same response, which is what we were expecting. One place for your shared data, accessible from all the titles within that umbrella. And that kind of wraps up the basic demonstration of title data, publisher data, getting it on one, setting it on another, and seeing that replicated across the system. I'm going to move back into the Game Manager dashboard just briefly to show this is our sample title here, and then I'm going to compare that with Unicorn Battle, our demonstration title, where we have lots of title data in here and lots of complex objects. So moving back into the to the slideshow here, let's see, whoops, there we go. Back into presentation mode, there is our code that we would be using in the clients. And for these complex objects like we just kind of flashed onto the screen, there of course would be deserializing and serializing when working with this data programmatically. So this is an example of the code from the Unicorn Battle. When I get the title, when the response from TitleData comes back, I'm parsing through each of the data objects and determining if my class information is in there, if my spells information is in there, and if my character slots information is in there. And this code goes on for each one of the title objects, but this code is ran once at the beginning, and then that information is cached and used throughout the game, basically for the duration of the session. So this is a good way to get all of your configuration data early on. You can run this call immediately after login, and then you know how to build your classes, or for the purposes of this game, how to build your classes, your spells, encounters, etc. But for any game, this is very generic, very adaptable to any genre, any game type. And specifically for Unicorn Battle, here's an example of the achievements JSON. Those go on, and there's a system where the achievements are tracked using the thresholds set here in the title data, and then user statistics are compared against the benchmark, and then if they've got the if they pass the threshold, then that achievement is awarded by the server that makes the logic call and writes that information to the player data. So we're beginning to get into the scenario where all of the PlayFab systems start to work together, but it's all driven centrally around the player data and the title data that kind of is your the data representation of your game experience. We also do things like character level ramps, so you know how much experience a character needs to gain before getting to the next level. Class details, when a character starts out, they have default class properties, hit points, mana points, defense points, speed points, all of those things, which spells they have access to, what art corresponds to the spells, which sound effects and art effects to play on dissolve, as well as a number of other things in encounters, promotions, which includes live in-game sales and in-game events that can be tweaked on the server, and you never have to touch your in-game code. You never have to make new builds of the client. It all streams in and is managed ad hoc for each client independently based on this centralized title data. Quest details, spell details, and external web links to our community site, to our help sites. All of these things can be easily stored on the server and then pulled down at runtime. And that way, if you need to make a change, you'd rather point people to a sell page rather than your normal home page, or if you want to point people to your DLC page rather than your base package, all of that can easily be tweaked. Very good uses for title data, and very, very small amount of data to send back and forth to get these effects. Also, we've done some default UI settings for how long to sit on certain screens, and what order to go in and which types of UI to display in certain situations. All of that type of information is being used and processed in title data for our Unicorn Battle example. And that is it for the presentation, but I did want to show one last thing, and that is pulling this information down from Postman and just seeing it all come through as you'd expect when you run get title data with requesting all of your keys. So here we've got our Unicorn Battle environment. So we switch to the Unicorn Battle environment. Don't know if I'm logged in. Interesting. Getting some slow connectivity or some odd behavior out of Postman here. But basically, what you would see here, when our call returns, we've got a keys request going out with 0 objects, and
what it's worth, Zach, and for those on the call, every now and then I've noticed that Postman does get into a state where you hit the send and it just sits there spinning and spinning. What you might want to do is try completely closing Postman and restarting it.
Okay.
I frequently find that cures the problem. I'm not sure what's getting backlogged in the memory stack for the program, but that's been my experience.
Yeah, and it has been acting up this morning, so I will say that's been my experience this morning. So moving back, Gonna make sure our environment is there. Additionally, I can go get an active session ticket from the game manager, and if this doesn't work, I'll show that side workaround also. So client, log in.
You should have the same token set from previously. Excuse me, session ticket.
Yeah, I never got authenticated on Unity.
Okay, clearly
yeah,
there's an issue. So why don't you just move on?
All right. And one moment here while I get the active login. All right, I've pulled my backup credentials, and I'm going to edit the environment here. Paste in my fresh ticket, submit that, and now we are authenticated. Now moving over to getting title data, we'll run it, run the request wide open. And yeah, Postman seems to be hanging up and can't really be certain why. So I do have the old Postman up down here where we've got my collection, get title data, all these are out of order. All right, now here we are running again. Apologies for the confusion here, but just having to set this up in the old version. All right, finally. So wide open, we get all of the keys. So there's all the stringified or escape string JSON data coming back as the entire list that we see over here in the dashboard. So all of that information just came back. And then I also like to show how you can set in a subset, an itemized subset of these keys, and also get only the keys you're looking for. So if you've got a large amount of data in this and you don't want to be pulling everything every single time, maybe your code strategically calls just for the achievements, and you can call and just get the achievements data. Or maybe you just want achievements and classes. That's also itemized out. You can get as many or as few keys as you'd like using those simple options. And that brings us to the end. So if we have any questions, I can take those at this time. Otherwise, thanks for bearing with me. Sorry for the rocky road there, but I think we've got through some good content.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Zach. So we're going to go over and check for any questions at this point. So if you have any at all, feel free to post them into the questions window. There is one right off the bat, which is, it talks about the limits that we were talking about, limiting to 100 keys, 10K per key, that sort of thing. The question is basically, what if they need more keys? What if they need more space? Well, the main thing to do is to reach out to us and work with us directly. These limits, and frankly, all the limits that we've selected for the service, and which we'll be posting to the site shortly, those are all based upon some real limits within AWS, which, while the best way to put it is this, they're designed in order to prevent there being any issues with the title. In the case of getting a lot of keys, for example, if you query for hundreds and hundreds of keys all at once from a single user access, then what you're going to see is some DynamoDB slowdowns, and that's what we want to avoid for titles. So basically what we're trying to do is just make sure that everybody's working within the bounds of what's going to be effective for them as a base. But that said, for titles that have extreme needs, we're always able to work with you to come up with other solutions. I mean, a title that has some some exceptionally high data needs is going to have its own unique solution for it. Anyway, the other thing I should point out about that too, thinking about the actual what we said in the presentation, 100 keys up to 10 kilobytes each. If you are maxing that out, you're not going to want to query that all at once. One of the other limits is making sure that you query no more than 250 kilobytes of data in one query. So if you've got 100 keys at 10 kilobytes each, obviously that's a meg, it's 4 times 250 kilobytes. So you wouldn't want to query that at once because, again, that would cause a slowdown from DynamoDB.
And pulling that much over a mobile connection oftentimes can leave a bad experience for your users too. So it's important to think about, just-in-time data access, or if it's fast and easy, cache it up front so that you don't have the load screen or the loading spinner every single screen change.
Right. And in addition, if you do have a need for a high amount of data, and it's data which is at the title level or the publisher level, something where users aren't going to be modifying it, then really what you ought to do is look at using our content system, which is a CDN. It's built on CloudFront, though we are actually looking at adding some other CDNs to that as well. That way you have the opportunity to have very large data stored in a CDN-style distributed front end so that it gets the data to the players as quickly as possible and as inexpensively as possible. Okay, well with that, I'm not seeing any other questions. So I'd like to thank everybody for your time today. Thanks to Zach for presenting today. And I hope everyone out there has a great either remainder of the day or end of the day, and looking forward to the weekend.
Yep, right. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, thanks everyone.